Hello, and welcome to the KBA Devlog series. A series about a comedy and story-driven Zelda-like, with strategy and puzzle elements, and the hurdles it takes to complete it. Which includes my procrastination, my ape-like behavior, and humor that's probably only funny to me. In this fantastic new episode, I will be showing you the process required to implement John's attacks. Starting from art, all the way down to programming, and some mistakes in between. Among other, non-attack related things. Stay tuned till the end, for some new music. Many, normal, game developers, like to program a working model before coming up with designs to replace ugly placeholders with. But who said I'm normal? No, I'm someone who likes to perfect visuals, possibly resulting in destruction. But who doesn't like a little destruction every once in a while? Anyway, after making a Twitter post asking the peeps which gun and projectile designs were their favorite, the consensus settled on this ray gun design. I proceeded to draw up a quick concept, and by quick I mean, taking hours painstakingly trying to come up with an acronym to try and fit with John's backstory. Not to mention the time it took creating this projectile animation. But I digress. After that, I worked on an animation of John using his gun with a muzzle flash. A process I seem to have forgotten to record, inspired by Strategli's post here. It looks good now, but just wait until it's implemented into the game. It should look great. As for the close-ranged attack, I wanted something that would really make sense for his character. I mean, what's better for a detective than a giant gavel? Now he can be judge, jury, and executioner.
I am the law!
Anyway, after a couple days of trying to stop avoiding work, the animation process for the left and right directions were pretty straightforward, because it mostly required repositioning his legs and arms, so I chopped off his arm for convenience. Then, to make it a little more interesting, and fit with his backstory, which will remain unstated, I made his hammer materialize into his hand. As for the swinging state, I had to be a little more mindful about how the skirt of the trench coat drapes over the body. And the specific placement of pixels, as to not distort his appearance too much. Especially in his beautiful face. Which was a little difficult to picture. But thanks to this video, by Adam C. Yunus, where he uses a technique to separate each body part by colors, it made it way easier to visualize. By the way, if you have any desire to learn or are learning to draw pixel art, check out Adam's channel in the description. His videos are very insightful. When animating the front-facing direction, it was pretty challenging. Because when it came down to bending him forward, I had to remove a row of pixels per every 2 rows, while also making sure it was still readable. Last, I adjusted some of the pixels to provide better perspective, and angled the hat to match. For the final direction, since it's the same animation but reversed, I repeated the same steps, copy and pasting the hammer's materializing particles. I used the same method to bend him forward, but I reduced the size of his upper torso and head, to imply depth.
Hey, what are you doing? Hey, stop it! Hey, you're messing up here! Come on! Whoa! Whoa! Stop it! Whoa! Hey, this might be good.
Before starting, let me update John's idle animations, so he doesn't look like a robot. When I set up animations in Unity, I usually start by changing each animation frame center point, aka pivot point, in the sprite settings to line them up correctly. I change their heights to let Unity know whether an object is behind or in front of another object more accurately. Most often, I only set the center points for other objects lower if I need to be able to see the player through it. Like this fence. But, as long as the center points are within its collider, it should look fine. If you're a game dev, you probably already knew that. But, if you aren't, congratulations, you now have useless information you'll probably never use. Unless of course you just started. Then strike that from the record. Now it's time to set up all 12 close-ranged attack animations, along with their 60 total center points, give or take. Oops. I found a discrepancy. Anyway, after I figured out how to edit sprites and overwrite them instantly, without ruining all my work, those animation assets are now finished and out of the way. And, finally, I can set things up in the code department. It took me a while to figure out how to structure my code to meet my requirements. The requirements being a code that can be unshackled from one individual character. So, in other words, one completely customizable script that can be used to control multiple characters. Because I'm planning to have multiple pairs of protagonists, similar to NieR Automata.
These machines are talking.
Yeah, I've heard from the Resistance that they've been seeing this a lot lately. Couldn't tell you why though.
So, in order to keep my script true to that design, I created a couple variable slots to use the previously created animations in code. In the script, I then set up 3 functions. This one plays the animation, and after the time that is allotted, it goes to the next state. In practice, you would think this would work fine. However, the script that handles the player's idle and walking animations, which also calculates attack directions, didn't allow for other animations to play, so I added this restriction to my player animation script. After fixing that problem, I tried to give the player the ability to time attacks by holding the attack button. And after multiple iterations, all of which crashed Unity. I almost gave up, but eventually I made it work using this. Let's just call it a monkey loop. Finish up by activating the end state, which is very much like the starting state. But it sets everything back to default once it's complete. Now check it out. It works in every direction. And if your aim is off by even a bit, it corrects it when you hit the attack button, making controls less restrictive, especially in stressful situations. At this point, it's coding over art. So setting up animations will be a breeze. See for yourself. The first step will be prep. So I copy-pasted the hammer code. Like the lazy ape I am. Tidying up the player controller script. And adding a new controller input. Replacing it in code. Then fill the animation slots with the correct information. Now it works. But the animation durations are wrong. Before coding the projectile's functionality, I had to create its prefab. But in order for the script to know where it'll shoot out from, it needs an origin, which I can use as the ray flare. Now for the projectile. But due to the height of the characters, it will require a separate collider for the ground. When triggered, it tells the enemy it's in line with the correct depth level, in order to be damaged. Then I created a vertical version of that prefab, moving the ground trigger over the projectile in order to reduce confusion when adding functionalities in the future. Now that the projectiles themselves are in the prefab club, I can get into how the coding works. However, the footage was very difficult to capture while programming, because I wasn't sure where to start, and I don't want to explain how quaternions work. So, I'll try to explain the gist of each section, in layman's terms. This will be long and painful, so don't run away. After that, I created this basic instantiation code, in the newly created fire state, to see how the projectile would look when spawned. Seeing as it looked fine, I continued by attaching a new function script to it. Quickly adding variables, to provide velocity and test it out. Then, I noticed something strange. The ground check became detached from its projectile. Checking for clues to see what went wrong, I quickly realized, and by quickly I mean, spending hours researching it on Google. Well, it turns out, if a child of an object, the projectile, and its parent, the ground check, both contain a rigid body, or physics component, they are no longer physically connected, no pun intended. Which is why they now move independently, at least during gameplay. So, if you've guessed that the fix is to simply remove one of the physics components, specifically from the projectile, then you'd be right. Now back to the script. Since the projectile is functional, here's how I determine the direction it'll shoot. First, I set the spawn code to equal a new game object, so every time a projectile is created, I can communicate with it, in order to send the animation direction script's calculated numbers, to a variable in the projectile's code. But, all that was just for speed directions. The rest has to do with positioning, rotations, and offsets of the ray flare. And, the horizontal and vertical projectiles, when spawning. But I won't subject you to that torture. And positioning the parent, as each frame progresses, through code, which is tedious to explain, so I'll just show it on screen. Now here it is in action. And now for some music. In the next episode, I may be showing off some new enemy designs, complete with an explanation on my combat system. So, stay tuned for that. That's it for this episode. If you like what you've seen, please, like, subscribe, and share your thoughts down below. Anyway, until next time. See you later.